Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so happy to have Ray Heimann here again. He is a very amazing person who works in multifamily, and you will hear about a little bit about it. But as you know, I like to find a quote that works with the person that's going to speak. And because of what Ray and his group do, this quote I thought was appropriate. The avoidance of taxes is the only intellectual pursuit that still carries any reward. That's John Maynard Keynes that said that. So we love tax avoidance. So yay, tax avoidance. Oh, Gary, I'm so glad you're here. I've been thinking about you a lot. I need to talk to you about something. Anyway, so we have Ray Hyman with us today. He's part of the Terra Group. The Terra Group buys apartment complexes, small, they will start at as small as 2 units up to about 80 or 90, maybe a little bit more as they are growing. And they turn them around, they add the value, they get them rented out, and then they have income coming in. And at some point, they plan to sell some of them, but possibly not all of them. And they have a fund in which you can invest. And they also do what's called one-offs, which I'm kicking myself about, but I didn't have the money at the time. But we will talk about the Harrison later because I just think that was one of the best deals I have ever seen. So anyway, uh, he's young, he's handsome, and he's been doing a really great job of building the Terra Group. So, Ray, please take it away.
Thank you, Peggy. I appreciate all that until you lied about the handsome part. But well, thank you very much. I appreciate being on. Love being on Nest Egg. It's a great community. But like Peggy said, Terra Capital, what we're really focused on is sub-institutional multifamily. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity really across the United States in assets that are 100 units or less. In some places, that number might be 125. In some places, that might be 75. But it's really whatever sweet spot in that geography is way too big for local groups to compete regularly on and way too small for large, well-capitalized national groups to want to spend their time on it. And it's a very competitive market on the back end for portfolio exits, which is really our main thesis. So we put in all of the upfront work and effort to acquire buildings largely off market that require a tremendous amount of value add renovations. And then we package them into portfolios and we exit on the back end. And it's all a matter of getting to that higher yield on cost at entry and post renovation and stabilization, and then selling into a market at a reasonable exit cap that is comp provable and gets the job done for returns. So I'm happy to discuss at anytime some of the syndications and one-off deals that we've done. But what I was planning to do was go through our Fund 3, which we just kicked off in the last, geez, what is it, June? In the last 4 weeks. And just talk a little bit about the quote unquote small multifamily space, which we define as 50 units or less, which is where the opportunity is at its peak. So I'm going to share my screen here. So Tara, we've done Fund 1, we've done Fund 2. They've all been very similar, and I've talked about them on Nest Egg before. They are the small multifamily space. Fund 1 and Fund 2 were really sub 20 unit buildings. We've expanded that to be, for Fund 3, we've expanded that to be sub 50 unit buildings, mostly because there was enough opportunity in that space that we ended up buying as syndications, but they had yield and similar general asset level properties to our sub 20 unit assets. And so it just made more sense to kind of club them all together. It wasn't dilutive to returns. It actually is a net positive to a cash on cash and IRR. So we've included those in there. The only other difference, because we're still in the same three cities that we've been in since 2015, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Indianapolis. The only other difference is that we are partnering with Sopris Capital on this deal, who is a multifamily office and has been an excellent partner both operationally and on the fundraise and on the anchor capital side of things that really helped us kick off Fund 3. And we've already this deck is actually a couple weeks outdated at this point, but we've already acquired over 100 units in Fund 3 as a part of a seed portfolio. Then that is just a way for investors when they come in, there's something that they're actually buying. Some of those seed deals are in here. Some of them are missing because we bought them since this deck was published. But Sobers Capital has been fantastic and has gotten us from, 0 to 60 on the fundraise side of things very quickly. So really appreciate their involvement here. So I'll go through a couple pieces of this deck that I think kind of highlight the investment thesis, but really the opportunity for what's going on in the small multifamily space. So small multifamily, anything that's sub 50 unit that's not a single family home. So literally duplexes up to 50 unit properties. Every once in a while, we'll buy an individual duplex or triplex, but in general, we're trying to go after portfolios of those types of properties that have maybe 30, 40 units in them. That makes it easier for us to buy at scale. But you can see on the right here, we are also focused on this exclusively Pittsburgh, Columbus, and Indianapolis. And that's something I'm going to talk about a little bit too. Fantastic markets. Some of these bullet points on here, very limited institutional buyer penetration, but an incredible amount of institutional and just below institutional interest in portfolio entries in these markets. There's very little large scale multifamily properties and communities in these cities. So their number one way to get exposure to markets that have very high occupancy, continued rent growth, and are generally recession resilient slash don't have the same regulatory threats that some other interesting markets in the US have. Their best way to get any exposure to that is through buying portfolios. So that's where you get the portfolio arbitrage. There's a huge opportunity to buy off market in these cities. We used to do virtually the exact same thing in New York City in the early 20 teens, and it was doable but very difficult. We were the one of 15 people to call that day. In the Midwest, we're very frequently the only person to contact these sellers, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And just in general, there's a lack of competition, but there's a lack of infrastructure as well that makes it, it gives us some barriers to entry, some moat around what we're doing. For larger properties, there are property management firms, law firms, contractors. You can just go down the list. There's a whole infrastructure for operating and renovating those properties in the smaller multifamily space that doesn't exist. So we've had to largely build that up. And between that and scattered site management, that's what makes this a difficult, but if executed well, very profitable strategy. But you can see just in the bottom right-hand corner, vacancy across our three markets is, really like teetering on the 4% and below range. That's extremely strong across the US right now. And that has been true in these markets for a very long time. They're supply constrained. There's not a lot of supply coming online each year. And even though the population growth is not huge, it largely there's not a lot of new product for that population growth to absorb. So it makes it relatively stable, keeps vacancy low. Another metric we care a lot about is the rent to income ratio. So that's your annual rent as a percentage of the median income in an area. It's sub 25% in each of these markets. It's a little closer to 20%. That's very important for a lot of reasons. I mean, the San Franciscos and New Yorks of the world are 45% plus, and that makes it very risky from a regulatory perspective. It also makes it difficult to operate and achieve rent growth over time. And it also is the reason why you see people moving, in addition to a lot of post-COVID related things, moving out of higher populated urban centers and taking a chance on some secondary, and in this case, probably more tertiary markets. And you can see medium household income is not huge, but rent growth still is in that 2 to 4.5% range. I think what we see on our assets is a little bit closer to the 5% range. Um, but across the markets, it's still, somewhere between 2 and 4.5% is pretty strong, just versus where a lot of markets in the US are right now with potentially slightly declining rent growth. I will um, cover this one quickly. Um,
Ray,
the
can I ask a question?
Yeah, fire away.
You addressed three of the items in that bottom chart, but you didn't address MHHI. I believe that's what it's called. What is MHHI?
That's the medium household income.
Okay.
That is, that's 40 to 85K is kind of a broad range for our cities in the Midwest. I'd say a lot of the neighborhoods that we're targeting are somewhere in the 80 to 100 range. And then there's, it's the Midwest, so there's a lot of, workforce housing territory that's out there. We generally stay away from that. We have done some deals in the workforce housing space. That's not what we're targeting here. Um, but it gives a pretty broad range. But versus what a median household income might be in New York, just is helpful context for what that looks like.
Okay. Um, I'm sort of used to seeing somebody well, on these deals, I try to look at the what it costs to buy a house in the area, so you can relate how much transiency there is relative to the rents. And are houses? I mean, well, I'll just listen to your presentation, but I'm
No, that's
interested
it.
to
That's a
hear.
great question. I mean, one it actually bleeds into what I was about to go through here is the kind of difference between our cost per door post renovation and the price of a house, and also the cost of ground up development in these markets. So that's all about buying at a discount to both of those things. The median price for a home in each of these markets has gone in the neighborhoods that we're targeting, is in the 350 to 450 range. These are generally the better neighborhoods, but also single family home prices have gone up meaningfully, even in the Midwest here. And then the cost for ground up development is not far below that. It's kind of 300, 350,000 for ground up development for multifamily. We are generally buying at somewhere between 80 and $100,000 per unit at entry. We're then adding in something like 30 to $35,000 per door in renovation. And then our exits versus ones that we sold on one-off, and also deals that we've tracked in the market that are portfolio exits, that's much more like high 100,000s to low 200,000s per door. So that's kind of the arbitrage of being able to take these assets down, add the value, lease them up, maximize cash flow, and then where you can sell it. And no matter what, whether you're us buying at a 60% discount for ground up, or you're our buyer buying at a 50% discount versus or like 40% discount versus ground up, there's a very meaningful discount to any new builds or single family homes, which is one of the 100% agreed. That's an important metric to look at. And it's one of the things where our product really shines, just our ability to buy at a relatively low price per unit or price per square foot, and come up with a fully cash flowing product that is very, very attractive discount versus ground up or single family.
Thank you.
Yeah. The Next thing I think it makes sense to cover here is just some high level things that are very interesting about the small multifamily space specifically. We used to do it in New York City, and it actually was fantastic product. I mean, the 2019 rent laws made it much more difficult to operate. There's still less meat on the bone in buying cheap because there's so much competition, even for relatively small buildings. But even in New York City, the small multifamily value add uh, opportunity was very, very real when we started. And it just is like on steroids in the Midwest versus what it looked like in New York. But there's significant value add potential. I mean, the vast majority of these properties have not been renovated. And some really in the 21st century, some of them got renovated at some point in the early 2010s, early 20 teens, and the light kind of inadequate renovation. But for the most part, I mean, these are like you're looking at 80s and 90s finishes in these properties, which is amazing. You know, the average is more like 15 across the country, but it's, you know, closer to 30, 35 where we're operating years untouched or between renovations rather. So there's significant opportunity for that. There's a massive off-market opportunity, which has been my specialty at Terra. I've done a lot of acquisitions, strategy work in banking and consulting at other PE funds before Terra. And my partner is more of a ground up developer type. So he's on the renovation side of things. But I spent a lot of time on our off market approach. We buy now, it's closer to 75% of our units are bought off market. And that's because of the, you know, dynamic that I was talking about before. There's just not, it's, you know, too big for flippers, too small for developers is the simple way to put it. There's just very few people that are well capitalized enough to and have the focus to buy individual smaller deals that require value add. And as a result, you know, if you can package a bunch of those up and sell them into the more competitive portfolio exit space, then there's a pretty meaningful market dislocation there, which is what we're taking advantage of. That's the portfolio aggregation premium, which, you know, is a similar thing. If you can, you know, buy, you know, 1+1 = 3 type portfolio arbitrage. There's meaningful recession resilience to small multifam. Their rents are just at a big discount versus ground up, mid-rise, luxury, even garden. I mean, our discount to Lux, we generally try to underwrite to a 35% discount. We end up hitting more like a 25% discount just because the comps are not great in this space, and we end up beating very frequently because we're conservative underwriters. But in general, that is a very recession resilient factor. You know, it's when the city starts struggling, or the economy starts struggling, it's those highest rent ones that get hit first, except for the ultra lux, which, you know, virtually unaffected. The other thing that's very advantageous for us is the ability to use prop tech to operate our portfolio. I think what we do would not have been possible 15 years ago, would not have been possible before the rise of single family home aggregation. We use a lot of the same technology on the acquisition side and on the operations side, and on the construction management side, to be honest. That is it's a place where prop tech has just been hugely beneficial in the small multifamily space, and folks have not really taken as much advantage of that, as certainly as we have. And then the last thing is there's limited new supply. I mean, there's very, very infrequently relatively affordable 30% discount. Well, that never happens, but 30% discount to Lux small multifamily built. There's very low new builds in the small multifamily space. Almost everything is 100, 150 unit plus for new builds in our markets, especially. This is something that I think was eye-opening when we first started working on in this space, 10, 15 years ago. That 80% of all multifamily rental units in the US are actually in small multifamily properties. So, similar to the way that the vast majority of housing stock in the US is single family homes, The next layer, which is the small multifamily, so single family homes are 1, small multifamily is 2 to 50. That makes up 80% of the multifamily space. So we're always talking about these large multifamily properties and developments and apartment communities, stuff like that. That is actually only 20% of the total multifamily space. The vast majority of it is in these, 15, 20, 40 unit properties, duplexes, stuff like that. And the reason why that is super important is because unlike the large multifamily space, only 7% of multifamily units are owned by institutional investors, sophisticated investors, while 41% of units in the large multifamily space are owned by institutional capital. The remaining 60% are owned by very, very sophisticated local capital groups. So it's virtually the same situation. And that's just important from an acquisitions and a maturity and a professionalization perspective. It's like this part of the multifamily housing stock is just it's owned by local mom and pop groups. They're fantastic. They're the bedrock of the U.S., but they've aged out of their willingness and desire and frankly competitiveness to operate these properties. They have not been able to keep up with a lot of the technology that is used and tenants really like, and they have more often than uh, not paid as much attention to their assets as somebody like us would. I mean, when we go in to buy properties for the first time, there's frequently vacancy. There's almost always under renovation, and that's even in some of the best neighborhoods where like the next door neighbors are a ground up development from the last 8 years, or their next door neighbors are virtually the same style property, but they've renovated it and it's going extremely well. There's just it's a cash constrained set of the population that is not really focused on these buildings, and that's who we're buying from. So that's why the off-market piece of it is so compelling, and why the opportunity to professionalize it, maximize rents, manage for profit is so strong. It's because that is, despite being such a large percentage of the overall multifamily housing stock, it is very, very, very mom and pop. This is a good chart of where small multifamily rents are reported as being rented versus market rate. So 49%, most or all units below market rent. 24%, half below, half above, so kind of even, and 20%, above market. It's just another data point on the relative mismanagement of smaller multifamily properties, which is a huge advantage for us, right? Somebody who owns a 25 unit building who is looking at their monthly income and seeing $800 rents, but we know that once we come in, renovate and do what we've got to do, even just leasing it up more adequately, that's going to be a $1,200, $1,300 rent. It's just we're speaking a different language that's favorable to the buyer because we know that there's more opportunity in the asset than the current owner is able to achieve. Material replace. This is what we were kind of discussing before, but material discount to replacement costs. We're in the 150 to 170 per square foot range. Whereas, the lowest thing between development, national sales, and REIT valuations here is 250. And the ground up in our markets specifically are closer to 300. So it's a meaningful discount. And as discussed, that is important. This is another point I made earlier in the bottom right-hand corner. Just the cumulative new units that are large multifamily versus small. I mean, you can see just from 2010 on, there's virtually no new units that are brought to market in the small multifamily space. I mean, almost everything has been large multifamily. We covered these pieces pretty well, and this is something for small multifamily I think is helpful for context, because we're not the only group doing it. We are one of, if not the only well-capitalized group that's investing in this asset class in the Midwest. But there are tons of shops that are doing it around the U.S. So Carlyle, the massive PE fund, has a huge presence in Brooklyn. I mean, it's funny. Some of the properties that we did in New York in 2015, Carlyle bought, and we have a pretty massive return profile on that, which is always fun to see. But they are buying small multifamily properties mostly in Brooklyn and Long Island. Veritas is another group that does small multifamily. They're huge. They're in mostly the LA area, but also San Diego. And just all across the Sun Belt and West Coast and East Coast and Northeast markets, this is something that's gotten relatively mature and difficult for us to compete in. Whereas in the Midwest is like everything else with the Midwest, and I can say that because I grew up in Cleveland, that is behind the curve. So the opportunity there still remains very chunky. And this is one more data point on recession resilience, or set of data points rather. The small multifamily, these are national averages. Asking rents $1,350 versus large closer to $1,700. Rent growth relatively similar, and vacancy lower than large multifam, despite that being what folks are so excited about. And the vacancy growth for small multifamily versus large multifamily, this is across the US, right? Because our vacancies remained relatively stable in our markets, but is at 50 bips year over year growth, whereas large multifamily is 2 percentage points year over year growth. And it just shows you when there's struggle or any kind of economic tension, that translates into much more pain for the large multifamily than for the small multifamily, especially around new builds. This we covered well. I think here is something to focus on. The way that we do small multifamily is very off-market oriented. This is just a high level 5-tier on our acquisition strategy. There is a tremendous amount of data out there that's difficult to access if you don't know how, but it exists, that allows you to effectively get in touch with owners of small multifamily properties pretty easily. One of the big differences is that all large scale multifamily are owned in a 20-tiered LLC ridiculous structure where you can't tell who owns anything, whereas a lot of small multifamily is owned through a single LLC or owned outright. In Pittsburgh, about 60% of small multifamily is owned by individuals. In Indianapolis, that's about 40%, and in Columbus is right around the middle. And that means that effectively there's public information on who owns properties and what their mortgage is, when they bought it, even some of their contact information. But once you have the basics, it's very easy to get the email, the phone, the mailing address, whatever it might be, for cold outreach, which is us reaching out directly to sellers. And like I said, we buy about 75% of our units now directly from sellers. So there's no broker involved. It's not a pocket listing or something like that. It's truly, we contacted them, started a conversation, and that was it. We really only do cold calling. We do letter campaigns, so old school direct mailers, and we do email. Those are the least offensive 3 that we've been able to do. Cold calling, some people don't like it, but really the texting drives people nuts. So we've avoided that. It just annoys people. I'm sure you guys get those texts all the time. You're like, what the heck is this? So those are the 3. And fascinatingly, we now own close to 100 assets, manage a bunch more on top of that we've helped other people buy. But it's probably been 5 or 6 instances of almost 100% bought on just over email. I mean, in 1 or 2 instances, like it's actually 0 contact outside of email. So like setting up time to go view the property, setting up time for inspections, all that stuff. Zero phone call, just purely over email. I mean, it's amazing to see. It's amazing to see how that works. And then our most consistent is the direct mailer. Generally, these are folks that bought these properties in the late 90s, early 2000s. They still respond very well to direct mailers. They check their mail, they'll call back on something that's interesting. They usually haven't received anything like that before. So it's very effective. And then for folks that have generally inherited properties, the cold calls and the emails super effective. Those are generally people in their 40s, early 50s, and they are all over that type of communication. And those are the two populations that we usually see as sellers in this space. And both of them are very interested in exiting. They've owned it for a long time, or they've inherited it, and in both cases, not really sure what to do with it in 2025. And we give them a very compelling offer and a no broker's fee way to exit. So it is very attractive. It's one of the reasons why it works well. And then on our team, we have acquisitions analysts and associates that their whole job is taking these warm leads that we've generated from cold calls, mailers, and emails, developing a relationship with the seller, and then putting together an offer and selling. So I think I've covered a lot of the high level stuff that that is going on with Terra Capital. There's I'm happy to send out this deck afterwards, a bunch of good market information, but I would like to show just some of our like an example of a case study. So this is Warren Castle. I was actually there on Wednesday last week. This is an 8-unit multifamily property. Now our average is closer to like 16 to 20 units, but this is an 8-unit multifamily property. We bought it at close to a 10% yield on cost. So if all in you were $100, you're making $10 a year on that before debt. After debt, it's obviously much higher. Actually, this one I think we refinanced in the beginning of 2022 or maybe the end of 2021. So I think our stabilized debt on this is like 3.25 or something. It's a cash yield on this thing is ridiculous. Estimated value is 1.6 million, but our total cost basis is 0.9 million because we had a $500,000 renovation and we bought it off market for 400,000. It's an 8-unit multifamily property with 6 vacancies and a leaking roof and a flooded basement that nobody wanted to take a look at. And so even without once you include the debt on that, it's 3x multiple. This is a good deal, but in general, our yield on cost is 9%. So this is like an especially, it's better than our average, but it's not an especially good deal for what we're doing in our portfolio. This is the map of Pittsburgh. The thing on the left here is where the property is. And it's in the north side neighborhood of Pittsburgh. It's very close to the Steelers Stadium, the Pirates Stadium. The near north side is got a very large hospital campus as well. So there's a bunch of work and entertainment things that people like. It's an example of the type of neighborhood that we like. In Pittsburgh, there are probably 5 neighborhoods, 6 that we spend a lot of time investing in. Pittsburgh well, we're in Lawrenceville, Shady Side, Squirrel Hill, the eastern part of Southside Flats, and the north side, and also Bloomfield. So I guess there's 6 or 7, Highland Park. And those are the neighborhoods that are very, very good, doing very, very well. That's where if you talk to anybody who's moving to Pittsburgh or lives there, they'd be like, okay, that's where you want to be. This is just an example of that. And here's our before and after. So the before is on the bottom, obviously, and the after is on the top. These are generally what we're doing on the interior to every single unit. They all look pretty similar. They're old, small multifamily, so their layouts are all over the map, which is one of the Rubik's cubes that we have to solve in order to execute well. But you're going to see white subway tile surrounds. You're going to see the white cabinets. You're going to see all white quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances, very similar white subway tile, all white in the bathroom, and generally engineered hardwoods in the living spaces, which are relatively inexpensive, but very very durable and better than what other people do as LVP, although it's slightly more expensive than LVP, but it's worth it. And then you can just see like this was not a habitable unit before we before we came in. It's some flooring and a couple of fixes here and there that you can't see it in pictures, but the bathroom plumbing was a disaster. um, Within this was probably an 8 week, maybe 6 week renovation total. It was looking like what it does on the top of the screen, and that's how we operate.
And how long did it take to get it filled?
This is an example of a very, very fast leasing building. This
Yep.
one is like a 2 week average on the market.
Do you start before you do the renovation? You start marketing it?
Yeah, so as soon as we have one unit done, if there's similar layouts, then we will start marketing it. Otherwise, we kind of go one by one. But another good example of technology now, like the day that the renovation is done, or even if the appliances aren't in, you can use AI staging to basically make incredible. I mean, if I had the links handy, I'd show you. I mean, there's some units that are we're not tricking anybody or lying to anybody,
Right.
but
No.
the unit doesn't look like that yet. It will in a week when people start touring, and it's like boom, it just looks like that. Day one, it's kind of incredible. But
Yeah, so that was like 10 weeks altogether between
yeah,
it set up and getting it rented out. That's spectacular,
yeah,
actually.
and in general, like anywhere from a 3 to 6 month timeline for fully stabilizing a building is normal for us. If there's a lot of vacancy, it's gonna be closer to 3. If there's some medium term leases from the summer that need to roll before we can start renovations, it'll be closer to 6. But that's the value of small multifam, and value add is a lot faster to cash flow than ground up or a lot of other things. Um, and I won't spend a ton of time on this because there's a lot of deals. And actually, I think we've added 4 or 5 assets to this group since then. But
Nice looking building. Miller.
yeah, this is one of our properties that's already owned by our fund 3. So as I mentioned, we did a seed portfolio with Sopris Capital and our own capital. Um, to your question earlier, we are about 10% of the equity stack in everything that we do. So that is reflected um, in our deals and our fund. So we're heavily invested as well. But we bought, I think there's maybe 6 in here. We're now at about 9 assets, 10 assets. But this one's in Columbus. Fantastic little property, 8 units, bought off market. Very strong cash yield even in place, but we're adding small amount of value, adding some infrastructure improvements or structural improvements rather. And this is a strong performer for us. Oak Street is in an extremely hot neighborhood in Columbus. We are doing a full down to the studs renovation in this one, also 8 units. And we finished 2 of them and have leased meaningfully above our pro forma, which is great, but not unexpected. This one, this is the picture of purchase. It looks a lot prettier now because we've power washed it and repainted and replaced the roofs. But this was in the Fountain Square neighborhood of Indianapolis, which is an extremely hot neighborhood. And this one is at full occupancy. This one is another fast leaser. This one is in a kind of a secondary neighborhood in Pittsburgh, but was such a strong deal that we went after it anyway. This one is going to have a well into the double digits yield on cost for us, which is fantastic, and has leased up very quickly as well, which is great. Here's an example of a rare duplex that we buy. This is in the Millville neighborhood of Pittsburgh, and it was just such a screaming deal. You kind of had to take it. 411 East 16th in the old North Side Historic District of Indianapolis. Had to spend a lot of time making sure we didn't tick off anybody in the historic department, but we're through that process now. And this one's been leasing up like crazy. It's very, very nice little location there. And that's really the long and short of it. So if anybody has
Yeah,
questions,
me, I always have
fire away.
questions.
Awesome.
One of the things that people tell me is they don't like the reporting of funds. So can you tell me, so you have all these properties in your fund, how do you report to the investors so they feel that they are getting the real information on what's happening?
Yeah, so we have what is I think a very good high level fund reporting template that we've put together that actually mimics one that we used to use at Severica Capital. It's a PE fund I used to work for quite a long time ago now. And I think it gives a good portfolio summary of where things are. We focus on the metrics that really matter. So like if like fund three, we're definitely reporting on the cash flow and all that stuff, but a lot of our metrics are focused around how many units are under contract, how many units still have legacy tenants, how many units are in renovation, how many are complete, and how many are leased up, to give you an idea of like, the snake going through the process of like we're buying hundreds of assets here. Like, where are we at in the grand scheme of like the capital that's deployed and how those properties are doing and how close they are to stabilization. We also do a very, very detailed asset level accounting and reporting for all the deals in the fund. So folks that are interested in like flipping through and looking at all the individual ones, we have that. And then we do summaries at the city level, which helps people to kind of contextualize, like Pittsburgh's got this going on, Columbus has this going on. But it is, whenever you're investing in funds that have many, many assets, it's very difficult to show asset level information in a way that makes sense. We will do generally on quarterly reports like a asset highlight. So like one or two assets as an example, just like where they're at in the grand scheme of things, representative of the portfolio. And I think that adds some color to it. But in general, it's really all about getting those fund level metrics nailed down, and being very consistent about what you show every quarter. And our investor portal has prior quarters kind of in a chart format, so you can see how things have changed over time.
Great, thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions for Ray? Because this is a really nice fund that he's got, they have put together. It's not just one. Plus, they've got the family office in there. Keep that in mind. That's really important when you've got a family office coming into your fund.
Yeah, our capital is probably 70% family office capital at this point. Maybe 20% of it is like real estate fund of funds. We would love to be higher index in the fund of fund side of things because it's an easier setup to go through that process
Right.
as quick. And then maybe 10% is kind of high net worth individuals and individual investors. But the anchor partner is a multifamily office, and they have been fantastic to work with, truly.
That's great. So you were talking about the expenses, and you're showing that you're paying somewhere 150, but because of the shortage of supply, how are you able to do this for a lesser amount than other areas?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is market, but prices are only affected when supply and the demand match up. And the reality of it is that there are very few groups, very few people that can come in and buy that. So the demand remains low, even though the supply is so sticky in these markets. The demand for smaller multifamily properties from a buyer perspective is low if there's not value added already, which is important. For fully renovated, fully cash flowing multifamily properties, you'd be shocked at the cap rates that some of these sell for, especially when they're located in the neighborhoods that we like. Local groups will actually come out and bid up for that. They're mostly like wealthier local families. But obviously we're trying to sell into the portfolio route. So it's, you know, a little bit different, still very competitive and gets very good prices. But in general, it's just we're one of the only well-funded groups that are willing to offer on these on a regular basis. We see one or two groups floating around every once and again, but if they win a deal from us, they generally go dark for, you know, 6 months to 18 months because they're working on that one deal. That's all they do.
Oh,
They won't show up on the next, you know, 30 bids.
right. So then another question I have is about, oh, so I get a lot of calls these days from companies that are putting together platforms that will look at your opportunity and vet it out for you. Are you using anything like that out of curiosity?
We generally have stayed away from that. I think the technology is great. We use it all the time. It's really good. It's changed our business. It's changed our lives. It does not work for the most important part of small multifamily, which is rent comps. Rent comps are very few and far between. They're hard to find. It requires you dialing for information, um, acting like a renter and doing a ghost rental tour to get the real lowdown on what's going on. I mean, it's a science, but it's as much an art to like figure out what that number should be. And we haven't found any kind of a service that really does a good job of that. I mean, obviously we're CoStar members and we have access to all the, you know, citywide rental data and all that kind of stuff. Everything you can. We're MLS members because we're brokers, all that stuff. But it just doesn't really give you the data you need to be confident and underwrite well. So
Hmm.
we have not found a good way to do that. But if you do find one, let me know and I can put a couple of my analysts out of work.
Okay. Well, my sister, who runs 40 units here in West LA, just picks up the phone and calls her competitors and says, you know, I'm the manager of this unit. And, you know, I'm just checking how are things going. And they really end up having relationships so that they end up referring to each other because she built the relationship with that manager, which turns out to be super helpful.
Ours is very similar. We've also hired people that way because we're vertically integrated. We bought a property management company in 2017 or 16. And we make all kinds of friends through rent comps and asking for advice and help and all that stuff. And we actually just hired somebody in Indianapolis 2 months ago who is somebody that's just been, you know, kind of along for the ride talking to us all these years and they finally wanted a job and then we brought him on. But yeah, it's very much word of mouth. It's technology has not touched that a lot of that information. Probably never will.
Okay. Where'd Frank go? Frank, do you have any questions? You're an investor. And then he disappeared. So Woodmont Group. Do you have any?
Hi, Ray. Yeah, great stuff today. This is Freddie. Okay, yeah, I was trying, you know, there's something I was trying to add my name to it, but it wouldn't let me. So, but this is
Really?
Freddie. Ray,
Maybe.
awesome information, and great journey. Love to see that, and hope it gets even better for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Question on the portfolio. How many units are you typically kind of packaging, or what would portfolios look to consider looking at?
That's a really good question. And I forgot to talk about it. So I'm glad you brought it up. The truth of the matter is that you kind of want to hit the 250 unit threshold. And for some reason, that seems to be a magic number for institutional groups. I think once they see that number in a portfolio, they think like, okay, this is kind of mimics like it's a synthetic version of a single asset that we might go after. So then they get interested in it. We have seen portfolios of small multifamily trade up to like 750 units. That includes the, you know, 20, 30, 40 unit buildings. But similar to the smaller you get, the better, the higher cap rate you get, the larger you get, the lower cap rate you get on exit for sure. So we want to package up as much as we possibly can. The way that we have designed our capital raise and capital needs is that we'd like to deploy everything over the next 2 years, spend 1 year finishing up renovations, and then have 2 years purely of cash flow. That math backs in also to having portfolios of 350, 400 units in each of our markets. So we could exit in a plethora of different ways, but we can exit at the market level for a portfolio, or we could theoretically exit across all three markets at the same time if there was the right buyer for that. That would be a mega, benefit and really massive portfolio arbitrage. We've seen some cross city portfolios trade at really impressively low cap rates. But what we are really thinking we'll do is the city level portfolio.
Does that answer your question, Freddie?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to bring up something from the Harrison. So I'm going to do my little pitch on this book, the Build Your Nest Egg, Discover the Magic of Money and Investing, which is a book that just came out that I wrote. I put this together because everybody tells me their parents never talk to them about money. And parents need to talk to their kids about money. So read this book to your kids, or have your kids, if they're older, read the book to you. So you start teaching at age 3. And I bring this up because one of the last chapters is about investing and adding value and what that is. And I added a few things to the Harrison, but I used the Harrison in this as an example of adding value and what a big deal it was to buy that 6-story building, I think it was, 6-story building with the 80 units and all the things you were going to do in it. So buy this book, Ray. You're in it. And I added a few other things, I have no doubt, because, just add everything into one kind of add value. But I was really impressed. And so Ray, tell us a little, because we have about 4 minutes left. I really liked the Harrison, and unfortunately I did not have the cash at the time to invest in that. And then of course I see why I thought it was such a great deal, but you told me today that you added more value than you actually told us about, or that you had in your opportunity. So
Yeah.
Can you tell us about how things like that come about, where you're able to add 8 more units to that property, plus make some of them into 2 bedrooms instead of just 1 bedrooms?
Definitely. So when we're going through the due diligence process on an asset, we will try to identify as much of the upside opportunities as we possibly can, so that we can maximize our offer, maximize value, so on and so forth, improve our potential for winning the deal. This was an 80-unit building. It was built in 1935, had the same mechanicals and MEPs as they pretty much, for the most part, from like the 30s and 40s. Which is crazy. I mean, it predates like Normandy Beach, right? And the place is built like an absolute bunker. It's an 18-inch concrete slab between each floor. It's six stories with 2 elevator banks, and it's just been an absolute grind to renovate that thing to modern standards. But it's going as planned. It's within budget. It's actually slightly below budget, which is surprising because we had a larger contingency on this one than normal. And our original thesis included turning very large studios into 1-bedrooms, which has gone well. Since acquiring the building, though, we had the theory that we were going to be able to do a couple of other things with it, including taking the 1-bedroom units and making them 2 bedrooms, and adding some units to the above grade ground level that was used for MEPs that are from the forever ago, and literally 80 years ago. And all of that has come to pass. So it's going to be a very extraordinary deal for us. It's one of those ones where you don't know 100% if those things are going to come through until after you've owned it for a while. But so it's, partly luck, and that is really really a nice one for us. And it also is a nice one for the community. I mean, this is a 1935 build that is in a neighborhood that's changed a lot since then and is now really on the rise. But and there's a tremendous amount of demand and not enough supply for multifamily housing. And this was 25% vacant because those units were down, and then the other units were under rented or underutilized. And going from studio to one bed and one bed to two bed, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it actually doubles your total people that you can have in the building. So it's a big change for the community. We've replaced all the windows, adhered to the historical board. They love us, and it's just a really good thing for the neighborhood. So it's been nice to bring life back to a very old building while maintaining its old charm. And it is paying off for us as well. So very happy to have that one. And I'm buying that book because I have a couple nieces whose parents are not very good money managers, and I'm gonna read that to them.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that'll be great. Well, uncles are terrific in our lives. My uncles were always terrific. They're the best. So thank you for doing that. And everybody, thank you very much for being here. And Ray, I hope you will come back again soon, because soon is when you would have another one off. Oh, by the way, how much is left to be raised on your fund?
We have about 35% left. So
Okay.
there's another close to 20 million of equity left to raise.
Okay.
And would very much so welcome anybody who would like to be a part of that. And will be definitely a fund 4, fund 5, fund 6 afterwards, it's looking like. So
Okay,
excited for
good.
that.
That's what I like. I like that growth. That's terrific. And are people just moving from one fund to the other, or do they have to be out of that fund before they could go into the next one?
They have moved mostly from one fund to the other, so there's no
Okay.
issues with that. And we are more than happy to accommodate whatever structure people need. We've had tons of kind of unique ones.
Oh, okay. I like unique. No,
Yeah, we've done some SDRA funds.
Oh,
We've done we haven't been able to accommodate any kind of 1031, although in one case we did a sidecar deal where we were able to do that. And we've been able to make it work. I mean, we use a pretty sophisticated fund administrator that allows us to do a lot of that stuff without like taking up all of our time doing it. So it's been
okay.
good.
That's great. So thank you everyone for being here. We'll see you next week. Next week we have a one-off multifamily person speaking who basically invests in the Tucson area. So we're just doing our best to cover the United States. Right, so thank you, Ray, very, very much. Come back
Awesome.
anytime. I'd love to have you come on and ask any of these people that are speaking questions, because you're an expert. And sometimes,
I will take you up on that.
okay, great.
Peggy,
Y'all
it
take
looks
care.
like Gary Burns has his hand up.
Oh,
Even
Gary, ask you a question. Sorry.
Well, I'm definitely interested in looking at your fund. I may have missed this because I got 2 calls in between. What's the general, if you're looking for residual income, basically living off that income, what's the general return? Is it 8.5? I didn't catch the return amount.
Yeah, the cash on cash, it's a 5-year hold period. So after that, we would exit, return capital, and returns above that, obviously. The cash on cash return at stabilization for our fund 2 is about 11%. That stabilization really kicks in, we call it
After 2 years.
halfway. Yeah, halfway through the second year, I was going to say, but it's a full fledged in the mid towards the end of the or really the beginning mid of third year. So that's when that turns on. But we have distributable cash at the asset level early, and so that comes out the door. It's just the percentage is the percentage weighting is off because a lot of the capital is tied up in deals that are still under renovation. So obviously those don't have cash flow.
And the building you were talking about that was so solid reminds me of the buildings, and they were pre-war because that's what they were called in the Bronx where I grew up, where you used to be able to just put it. I never understood the difference until I got older. You just put a nail in the wall and hung a picture. You
Yeah.
didn't have to worry about drywall. It was very different growing up that
Yeah.
way. I
Yeah,
sent you my number to text me. I'm
I
definitely.
saw that.
And Peggy, if you want me to hold on, we can certainly talk. Oh, I had one more comment. Subway tile looking, is that because of the neighborhoods? Why don't you use a much larger, more modern looking tile? And my suggestion is tile to the ceiling, and you'll never have to worry about any kind of mold on that area above the shower or bath.
Yeah, I like the tile on the ceiling. The white subway tile backsplash has been mostly and surround has been mostly an aesthetic choice. There is a larger format one that we like and have been experimenting with. It's slightly more expensive per square foot, but not like a budget breaker. But we're starting to pilot that and see how it goes. The Midwest is like has taste where, again, I can say this kind of stuff because I'm from the Midwest. The Midwest has tastes where New York tastes were like 10 years ago. So, and same thing with coastal markets. So things that have become popular in coastal markets, give me a call at 2035 and they'll be going on in our markets. But I got your number, Gary, and I'll text you.
Thank you.
Okay,
And
great.
I agree with Peggy. You're a good looking guy, but I also agree with your comment about yourself.
Now, he is a good looking guy. So is Freddie. All of us are good looking. That's why we're here. Because not only are we good looking, we're smart enough to know how to look good at any deals we're looking at.
I like that.
Okay, y'all. We'll see you next week. Thank you. Yeah,
Thanks all.
I do want to talk to you. Bye, Marcy.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye, Ray.
Bye, Marcy.
Thanks for buying the
Oh,
book.
Gary, bye-bye.
Got it.
Yeah.
If you
Thank
can't
you.
find it on Amazon, just put my name in. Okay. Goodbye, Frank. Thanks for being here. Thank you very much for being here, Clarence. Have to remove you. I think these people fall asleep. Where's remove? Oh, here he is. And
There you go.
Frank,
You got it. I actually had texted C. Betty. I'm not sure who that was. They had their mic on, and for a long portion of it, they must have chimes outside their window, and it was chiming from
I
the
know,
wind.
yeah, it was.
But I asked her, I think it was her. I wasn't sure. I asked that person to please mute themselves, and they did. They did see the message.
Good.
All right. So
Okay,
if you can
yeah.
see, this was Italy, but I just came back from a month in France.
Oh, good. So now you parlez-vous français?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Un peu?
No, very very little.
Yeah,
But I
I
had a
just,
great time in Paris, and I did visit the beaches of Normandy and saw all the graves, and it was a very interesting trip.
oh, well, good for you. I won't do any of that. They did take us when I just did the Rhine. We started Amsterdam, went to Basel. I just got back a week ago, Monday.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm going to do the northern part of Europe next. So we're going to
okay.
take a boat. That's the only thing we didn't get to do. We didn't get to go on a boat and go down the Seine, and we did a lot of other things, but we just ran out of time.
Yeah, the canal cruise type thing. We did
Yeah.
that in Amsterdam. There's so many, there's like 60 some canals there. It's really interesting. Anyway, I'm on a meeting with a gentleman. He calls himself sorry, Uncle Dan, and he's doing, I believe, the same thing as you. And he said there's some sort of lawsuit going on now with uh companies that have over 1,000
Employees.
employees and they're suing somebody. Do you know anything about that? It's not
I
your,
don't know anything about it. I do know that there are other companies that are do something similar in terms of what Champion Health does,
Okay,
but they do not apply the tax benefits correctly. And so the employees can actually be taxed at the end, especially if they don't use all the money. And almost all that I know of, their features are virtual. They're not in person the way that we do it. And I can tell you, where I'm not aware of any lawsuit out in the marketplace. I'll ask our CFO or CEO. But I know that we're doing 27,000 people at Miami-Dade, and they've vetted us entirely.
okay.
And I'm working on a couple of cities now. So it's
Yeah, I didn't know if that was something that was worldwide, or I didn't know that there were so many divisions and things. So maybe it's just with these particular companies.
could you put me in
And
touch with that person or ask him?
Uncle Dan,
Yeah,
I don't know if I have Uncle Dan's email.
information.
But
That
I
would be
probably could find it because he's in the same course, so he should be listed there.
okay. Where's he hail from? Here in LA or someplace else in the country?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. But no, I'm not aware of anything, and I know that we have been vetted by the IRS. We've got a private letter ruling, and we
Okay,
have
good.
ERISA attorneys who have vetted what we're doing, and we've now got 1.3 million people on the program.
Fantastic. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Looks like you're ready for another vacation then.
Well, no, but if everything goes right, I will be bringing in, I don't know, I'd say I'm working on one now that's got 26,000 employees, but only half of them are about full time. But that still generates for me about 100,000 a month.
That's
So
very nice.
yeah, it's
So
going to
is
be.
that like companies like Facebook or Meta and
Oh
Google?
my God, they have even more. No, this happens to be a retailer. It's Harbor Freight Tools. But
Oh,
one of my I've got about 100 referral partners now because that's where I've specified. I'd rather give away
sure.
25% of what I earn rather than constantly finding new businesses, although I do that too. As a matter of fact, tomorrow night, and I talk about you and invite people, and I will match up a few people to what was his first name? The gentleman
Right.
Ray, because I know
Heimann.
that they're multi-billionaires, and we've been saving them a huge amount of capital gains because I have this new person that I brought on that can save all the capital gains, and I've got an attorney that can change people's business from S corp to C overarching the S corp and take additional advantage of deductions. And so it's been fascinating. That's why I can't make it most Tuesdays. I
Yeah,
happen to
because
be
you're
there.
busy.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
my
the
phone
problem
goes
with
off.
the problem I have with is Josh, right? With the program is you can't get your money back out. You're stuck. And
Oh,
I don't
no,
work in stuck. I
no,
want to be able to exchange my money into something else.
yeah, and I'm at the point where, I just want income now, and I'll take the money and go fly someplace. So
Yeah,
my
good.
goal is my goal is
I
to
know
take
that works for some people, but you're not actually making any money there.
No, but my goal is to take at least two. Well, I'm already taking one United States trip. There's still plenty of places in this country to see that I haven't
Oh my
seen.
God,
Yeah.
yes.
And one international trip, but I'd like to up that to four, two and two, and take it, you know, to go to France, coach extra, because you really need that extra space for your feet, was 1,400 a ticket. Business was 7,000 a ticket. And first class was 14,000 a ticket. Now imagine you're in the same tube, but you're
I
sitting in the
know.
front and you're paying almost 14 times what coach. I mean, I could see business, but still, when you realize what it takes to make $7,000 and you're paying for two seats just to fly a little more comfortably and have a bigger screen TV. So I don't
Which I
know.
don't need. I have short legs, so I
Well,
fit
that worked out
anywhere.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the
but they do
students
serve better food up.
slightly better food. So our answer was buy sandwiches and things before we got on the plane. But we
There's
brought them,
that.
we brought them with us to start. But now actually, this was Delta. They had really
Oh,
good food.
that's
It was
good. So I flew on KLM And I bought the Comfort, which is even a higher level. It's not business. So I only paid like a couple $100 more for that. And I got like first class service, good meals, good food. Actually, they don't charge for wine and beer anyway, anywhere in the ship. So that doesn't matter. But it was nice, and the seat was a little more comfortable. It went back further, but it also had leg support, which you don't get in the moo area of the.
I never heard it called that before. Okay, I get it.
Yeah,
All right.
well,
Well, I will try and be here next week. Next Monday, I have a retreat and a strategic planning meeting. You know, I'm considering running for city council of Calabasas. I have to decide
off
between
the
those.
water.
Well, I think I could do both, but I'm not sure they'll let me because there won't be enough time for my business. So I'm debating. One of the people I know on the board is ill, and they're going to resign before the next election, which means if the rest of the council would appoint me, I would be able to run as an incumbent and people would get to know me. That's the only way I'll do it. I'm not going to spend $20,000 trying to win a seat because city council, there'll be competition. And besides which, all the people who are on the council now, I like, and I think they're doing a good job. There's no reason to go and try and fight them. I don't think I can do a better job. I with the water district, I thought I could do a better job. That's why I ran.
Right.
You know, and I am.
Yes,
I've
and you are.
oh yeah, no, we've had a lot of initiatives that they have listened to me on and have taken me to heart, and it's going great.